Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam. We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. You know,
we're back.
There's two great men in this world that said, "I'm back," and it was the quote. Michael Jordan and Blake Ruffino. That's all that I know. We are back. Joe.
No Sam Ellinger. You're not going to include him in that?
Oh, you mean like this? We're back.
I love that drop so much. I love it.
See, the funny thing is this is what you call doing 600 episodes and knowing you would say that to play the drop. We didn't get practice that. Nevertheless, we are back. Welcome back. Alex joined us last week, but Joe is back. He went to South Bend, Indiana.
Yes, sadly, I spent the weekend in South Bend, Indiana. According to everyone in my mentions, it's the worst place in the world.
Well, it's true. It's true. Very quickly, you know who else is back? It is Sam Ellinger because he's starting this week for Matt Ryan. So I want to throw this up. I saw somebody just say that Chris English says Sam is back this weekend too. So you know what? It's great for a lot of people. It's great for a lot of people. But Joe DeLeone is joining us. Joe, it's going to be a very interesting week in the SEC. Look, a lot of big things happened last week. Got some good games, not a high level of a quantity of games, but I think in the SEC this week and just around college football, the quantity is going to be big. Look, I'm gonna continue to say this: Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, A&M, Arkansas, Auburn. If Auburn loses today, they're going to have to fire their head coach. I mean, like, absolutely. At some point, they're going to have to let him go. And Florida, Georgia. Look, Georgia's coming off a bye week. Florida's coming off a bye week. I don't know if that game's going to be closer than some of the experts think. We'll talk about that in here. But I know what you want to talk about, too, and we'll get to Cocktober. It still feels horrible saying that.
I mean, it's a great bit. Cocktober might be over, Blake. And I know that we're probably going to get to that eventually, especially when we talk to Joe Yancey, who's going to maybe be able to provide some context on why Cocktober is going to be ending. But I think that bit has run its course, and it's time to turn the page on the Gamecocks.
They're overachieving. They're overachieving.
I don't even know but I wouldn't even classify it as overachieving. I think that they just got lucky. Like they faced off with Kentucky when they didn't have Will Levis. They beat Texas A&M after the cancerous, toxic nonsense that's been going on in that locker room. They're extremely distracted, and they're dealing with injuries at every major position possible. They have had the luckiest October schedule. They, I think, are the biggest frauds in the SEC right now. And for them to be ranked, I think, is a bit of a joke. I'm a lot harder on South Carolina than I think you are, Blake, but I don't think that team's legit. And it's time for maybe some exposure, and it might start with Missouri this weekend.
I don't think it's going to start with Missouri. I think it'll start after that, right? Like, I think that they could lose. Like, so this will be the last game for them in October. It is over. Cocktober will be over. I think that they can win today. Like, I think it's more plausible that they win today versus what they got the rest of the way. But here's my thing. They were projected for 4.5 wins. If they win today, they're at 7. Okay, so when I talk about overachieving, I got to be honest. I'm not – look, a lot of people like Shane Beamer, okay?
I don't.
I'm kind of there with you. I'm kind of there with you. Well, I'm not going to say I don't like him. He's just so damn goofy.
Right. He's like – I have an issue with a lot of those, and I tweeted about it a while ago, and it pissed off all the South Carolina fans, and I'm sure you remember. He's such a cornball, and I don't like the corny ass coaches that are all – like preaching like the goofy phrases.
The video, Joe, like the remember the video before SEC Media Days? He hop up at the bed, turn my swag on. Now it's a fantastic song, but it was cringeworthy. Y'all make fun of Brian Kelly.
He almost takes it further, which is like weird to say. And the weirder part is he's like actually, his background is from Virginia, like he's from kind of South,
the Commonwealth. No.
It's further south. Wait, it's further south than Brian Kelly, where he's coming from. He was coming from the Northeast. That's my point.
That's fine.
But he still feels out of place. He doesn't feel like he fits at South Carolina. He just doesn't feel like an SEC coach. Brian Kelly, at least, has been feeling like an SEC coach as of late.
That's true. That's true because he's kind of got that little Saban with him, like he's got that Dabo with him, like Dabo could be an SEC coach. Like he's got that kind of just swag or temperament about him. Lincoln Riley feels West Coast. I'll tell you what, and I know LSU beat the snot out of them last week. I still believe in Lane Kiffin. I still think that if he had the personnel, they'd be doing pretty well. Look, we'll talk about all that, but first, let's do this. I want to get to a couple of these comments. I got to let everybody know, like Kelly, Chris, Tyler, Blaze. What a hell of a name. I wish if we would have had a boy, I wish I would have named it Blaze.
That would
be a hell of a name. Carl and Chris again. Thank you all. Yes, we did have a baby girl this week. We named her Jewel Ruffino. It's my grandmother's name. Very excited. She's much, much prettier than me. She favors her mother. But we're really excited. She's in there with her mother right now. Hopefully they're getting some rest, and our son Ben's not, look, let me tell you something. My son Ben, man, he has been amazing in this transition. So I want to give out a shout out to him. All right, Joe, we'll get to the first break because we got a lot we need to talk about since we've been missing a lot. Let's get to the first break with Bet Online when Matt Perkins joins us. So we have Matt Perkins. They'll be joining us. He joined us last week. Was absolutely fantastic. We have Jenna Drinks. They'll be with 9:45 and Joe Yancey at 10 a.m. So let's do this. Let's wait for that first break because we got a lot we got to discuss here. Before we get to any games, Joe, I've said this and I'll say it before. LSU went through this last year, somewhat of the same exact thing that Texas A&M is going through right now, but it's much worse. It's much, much worse. Players getting kicked off, not respecting Jimbo Fisher. Now we have the reports that players are smoking weed inside the locker room. And let me just say this. Some of this isn't on Jimbo. Everything does resolve on Jimbo, but there's two main things for me. At some point, you got to have respect. As a former player, and you're a former player too,
yes.
At some point, you got to have respect for yourself, the school, and what the program is trying to do. Let me tell you this. If I would have been in that locker room, I promise you the guys that I played football with, that we would never have accepted that.
No.
Ever. Like, fights would have been going down.
Right. And I think some of that does come down to – now, there's obviously like a systematic issue there, and we can sit here and probably talk for hours about does Jimbo stay? Does he deserve to stay after everything that's gone on this season? It's just one thing after another. But to your point, it feels like there is a lack of veteran leadership in this locker room.
No doubt.
I have been on teams in college where, like, early on in my career when I was an underclassman, we were a very underclassman heavy roster, and we were terrible and we were immature, and there were things going on like guys stealing money out of people's wallets, guys stealing people's clothes, like just dumb stuff that nobody was held accountable for. And then as we were juniors and we were upperclassmen and we had more of a veteran presence in the locker room, that's when nothing flew. That was when if someone acted up, someone was being obnoxious, somebody was maybe getting into a fight in the locker room, it got shut down quickly. And it's a young team, separate from some of those key defensive players. Like, who is a veteran starter on that roster? It feels like a very young team, and they're showing it with the way that not only the way that they're playing, but the way that they're acting, especially with these recent suspensions.
You're correct. They are acting very immature. But again, if you are a 4 or 5 star recruit, and here goes to my second point, you got to know better, right? Like there is a level of knowing better. Like there is still enough senior leadership, if you will, that should know. And let me tell you something. Just because and I agree with you. First off, you're 1,000% correct. There's no other way to describe it because, look, me and you both know when young teams do that, that's exactly what's going to go on. One of those freshmen is going to have to stand up. And if I'm Connor Weigman, the 5-star quarterback who kind of looked really good last week, or kind of make Jimbo look like a little bit like, oh, shit. Like,
you got that one right.
He got that one right. So I'm gonna kind of just be careful here. But let me just say this: if I'm Connor Weigman, I'm going up to them dudes and say, "Listen, I will punch you in the face. Have you seen these buns of steel? I will knock you out." I would pay. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to call their names out, but we had an offense and defensive lineman that would go around to everybody's locker, and if they were cutting class, misbehaving, they would pick fights. One dude with 6'6", 315 pounds and might have had 20% body fat as a defensive tackle. Yeah, good luck.
Right.
Okay, good luck. So there are parts of me that just wonders, like what's going on here. Let me ask you this. Are we seeing what NIL's really about? Like, because they paid that entire freshman class. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that there are multiple starters on that team that aren't making remotely the amount of money that some of these freshmen are making. That's got to be splitting up a locker room, right?
Yeah, that was what I was also thinking with this issue, where they're so loaded on their roster with, they had an amazing recruiting class, and that's where all these freshmen are coming from, is this recruiting class. And they basically emphasized paying for the best players, which Jimbo's not going to admit that they did that. And there maybe was less vetting for the guys that are going to fit the culture to develop. And I think a lot of the better programs are still trying to do that, but instead Jimbo just said, get me the best guys that we can get, and we're going to throw money at them. And I think we're part of it, what you're talking about. One, we have the immaturity of those guys. Those guys maybe all in one locker room, collectively one mentality. If you've got enough dudes who are thinking, man, I'm too good to be here on this bad team that's not winning, that's what's leading to the misbehaving. But the additional side of things, absolutely. I'm sure that, upperclassmen are trying to say, like, hey, man, what the hell are you doing? Why are you dicking around? Why are you going out when we're on an away trip and getting suspended? Why are you smoking weed in the locker room? Why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And they're probably like, man, I'm getting paid $1 million. I'm getting paid $700,000. What money do you have? I've seen guys do crap like that all the time, not with money, but guys try to, flex on them. Be like, who the hell are you trying to tell me what I can't do? And it's all about that, that mentality of being better than everybody. And that's all it takes, is you're not going to listen to somebody if you think that they're lesser of you on that roster.
I agree with you. And, another thing is too, that, and Chris brought this up in the chat, and what I was going to get to with this NIL stuff, I can only speak to what I've been a part of in reference to NIL. Look, we've done multiple NIL deals with AYS. I've known businesses that have done NIL deals. I also know the coach that is involved in LSU and how he's structuring. Dude, Drew Rosenhaus,
I saw that
agent, brother. That's on Brian Kelly. So yesterday when we got home, okay, I started I had a lot I had to catch up with. I had a lot, just when making phone calls, recruiting, stuff like that. So I call up there and, I start talking to some people. It's legitimately Brian Kelly. Hey, take over really quick. Can you do that for me?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. LSU, as Blake's talking about, the Rosenhaus thing to me is like perfect. Like I was actually stunned when I saw that. I'm like, damn, they went right to the source. It's not like you're in a circumstance where you're asking for one of the consultants at RSR. You went right to Drew Rosenhaus. That looks fantastic on the scheme of trying to get more recruits to come play for your program. You need to bring in the right people that are going to teach the right lessons on how to approach and handle their money. There are a lot of guys that go into the NFL that have no idea how to handle getting paid, the professionalism that requires of them if they're doing these sponsorships and they have to maybe do a sponsored post or make appearances. You need people holding those guys accountable, and you bring in the most reputable agent, or maybe one of the most reputable agents out there in Drew Rosenhaus. That's how you properly set up your team for success. And I don't think Texas A&M, I don't know what they have done. We've seen a lot of other programs do similar things like this, where they're going out to get the right people to teach guys, get them acclimated, get them a professional understanding of how to act, how to handle themselves. And it feels like Texas A&M is just giving these guys money. There is no intention to properly set them up to be successful and understand how to handle themselves in these circumstances. But I'm legitimately worried for Texas A&M. And I think that the one argument, I'm curious when Blake gets back here that I want to ask him, like, how much do we hold Jimbo Fisher accountable for things going rampant in the locker room? And I honestly, and I think Blake's coming back right now, I think that Jimbo deserves a lot of blame for, I know that we were talking about the veteran leadership and that being an issue, but I think it's gotten to a certain point where bad team, a team that was supposed to be competitive this year, and I know that you can't really handle and take the blame for all those injuries. It's unexpected. But at a certain point, you got to say, like, hey, man, Jimbo, you haven't produced any results. You were running an offense that wasn't up to par, and you were unwilling to change it to a point where now you have a losing season on track. It might be time to move on from Jimbo, Blake. Like, what results has he produced, except for that COVID season that he had that made him look a lot better than he is? Maybe not this year, but next year is going to be like if you don't get this right, we're going to buy you out.
It's tough because, I mean, are you going to pay him $80-something million? And look, they blamed LSU's new AD, Scott Woodward, for that because he was the AD that brought in Jimbo. But they extended Jimbo Fisher, and not only did they extend Jimbo Fisher, they made it fully guaranteed money.
Which was so stupid. They shouldn't have done that.
Stupid. And look, if they're going to fire him, they're going to have to find a way either to get him with cause, or they're going to have to find a way to settle with him to get him out of there if they want. Let me say this. If I'm an A&M fan, I would give him another season because here's the truth. You do have a lot of talent. Now, there are a lot of things, Joe, that could happen and that are happening. There are some things that are not acceptable. Now, let me say this about Tom Hart, and I don't like calling people out like this, but Joe, I gotta say this. Tom Hart went on Feinbaum yesterday and said that Jimbo Fisher missed the meeting, like the production meeting that they were supposed to be at.
Wow.
Well, long story short, Billy Lucci from Texag said that's not true. They're having a massive recruiting weekend. They got number 15 Ole Miss coming in, and some things changed, and he had to reschedule. Let me tell you something about Tom Hart, though. And I'm not trying to call out Tom Hart. Tom Hart is a shit stirrer. Now, he did it at LSU last season. He talked about how bad the coaching staff was yelling at one another. Look, dude, they're already fired. Okay? Orgeron's fired. Jake Peets fired. Like, everybody's fired. The simple fact that you're just trying to create drama that may or may not be there, I can't stand. And that's what ESPN was trying to do there. I will give Jimbo this. I don't think Jimbo's trying to get fired. And let me tell you something. Tom Hart, if they're trying to recruit, they're recruiting. Then you need to, excuse my language, you need to shut your little pie hole and get the reschedule. He is the head coach of a massive SEC program. Shut your pie hole. That part, though, Joe, there are some things that I do think they're saying Jimbo's doing that isn't necessarily true. I will say, I do want to ask you this, though.
Yes.
This is getting worse because of what happened between Jimbo and Nick, right? Like,
oh, absolutely. Everything started off at a horrible trajectory because of that. But the one thing I want to, and I was thinking this right as you started bringing up how there's these rumors and things that keep getting brought up. That story about the guys smoking weed in the locker room, if you have a tight ship, that's not getting leaked.
It's not getting out.
That information's not getting out. And you pointed out how you think that sorry, I got a text. I got completely distracted. Braun texted me. I had such a good point that I was going to make.
Is it good?
It's a good text.
I'm not getting fired.
You're not getting fired. You didn't say anything inappropriate. But my point is that part of me wonders if they're trying to get him on cause. Like, part of me wonders if the athletic department is slowly just starting to put as much information out there as possible. And all it takes is enough things getting put out there to prove institutional lack of control that they might be able to have cause to fire him and maybe not give him that full $80 million, $90 million. Like, I think that's what this is pushing towards. And I know that is such a conspiracy theory, and I'm being
it's not a conspiracy theory because
I think it's possible.
I think it's very possible. And not only that is it very possible, I think it's more plausible. Let me tell you something that was, and look, this has nothing. Look, I can only speak to coaches that I know. Joe, this happens everywhere. Big boosters, okay, get pissed off and they start doing things, right? Like we've seen this all across the way. Look, I get Scott Frost was losing. There's no reason to pay Scott Frost $23 million. Okay, like there's no reason. Now, I do want to get our new Nebraska buddies in here one Saturday.
We will.
Mickey Joseph, by the way, a Louisiana man, they're a completely different team. I say that to say this. Boosters are going to work behind the scenes to get you fired if they don't like you. And there are parts of me that doesn't necessarily mind that if coaches are losing like Jimbo's losing. Mm-hmm. I will tell you this. If I'm paying $1 million a year in NIL money and you're losing, I want you fired. Okay? Like,
absolutely.
I just don't know any other way around that. That's my point. All right, to wrap up on this A&M stuff, is there any other things that you've seen or thought? How do you think this plays out? Let me ask you that. How does this play out?
I see two paths, and it's hard to really determine which one's the one, but the two paths are, I think he gets fired this season or the next, and they try to get him on cause, and we're just going to get more and more stories, and there's going to probably be a big blow-up one that's going to lead to him getting fired. Or he rights the ship, and the fact that he's recruited this well last cycle, he's recruiting as well as he is this cycle, it's going to be fine, and they're going to figure it out. Because he is a good he's a good coach. He's a good coach. He needs to stop calling plays, and he needs to stop being stubborn. And I think he needs to take a step back and humble himself a little bit, because he came into the season, swinging around like he's the biggest coach in the SEC, and he's proven that he's not. And I think maybe getting that pressure off of him, humbling himself a little bit, taking himself out of the spotlight for saying stupid things during press conferences and stirring up drama, that's the direction that it goes. And give him a year and they might be a little bit more electric. And you're talking about Weigman, the quarterback, like he's got a lot of talent. He might step in next year as a
he's got to step in now, Joe. He's got to step in now. Like he probably will now. Like they got to start writing this ship now.
And I think he probably steps in. And I think if you're Jimbo, you've got nothing to lose. Let him start. Hope he doesn't get hurt behind that horrible offensive line, but let him get his lumps, get all the bad plays out of his system, go into next season, let him sling it, let him put up a bunch of big performances. And that's your redeeming hope right there, is him riding the ship, getting the rest of the freshmen to follow along with him. That's your future right there. If you can't get him on the field and you can't get things rolling with him, then Jimbo's probably out the door.
Jimbo's going to need to call in like a very bright offensive mind. He's going to have to let go. Yeah. And I think that Jimbo can still have control of the offense while not calling it, right? Like you can have control of so for example, Dabo has a lot of control of that offense. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there are some sources that said that Dabo called the entire fourth quarter and Clemson came back and won. You can still have control. Okay. You're going to have to spread the ball out. You're going to have to get more innovative.
And Brian Kelly's kind of done that too, where he previously called
say that. He did it. He's done it the last 2 weeks. Yeah. He's done it the last 2 weeks. Joe, I don't think people understand very quickly.
Yes.
Louisiana people aren't used to coaches like this. Dude, we had a guy that ate grass and a guy that
the real meatheads.
We knew one natties with Ed Orgeron and Les Miles. Yeah. I rest my case.
Right. Yeah, he's a little more nuanced, a little more pizzazz when it comes to calling offense. I didn't know that he was calling the plays over the past couple of weeks, which is
he wasn't. He's not calling the plays. I think he's just telling Denbrock. I think he's a little bit more involved than we've seen, if that makes sense. Like he's a lot more involved. I do want to transition and get to this with you before we start getting to all these games. Cocktober. I know we talked on it a little bit. I mean, you're out.
I'm out on once. The problem is that Cocktober, they play Mizzou and they're probably going to beat Mizzou. But I'm holding out hope that there's a possibility that Rattler craps his pants and has another bad game because he hasn't done anything this year.
Why do you want him to lose?
I'm sick. I am pissed off at the South Carolina fans who jumped down my throat after I said.
Oh, there it is. There.
I mean, that's justified, but I also think that they're overhyped. But they also play Vanderbilt next weekend, so it's probably not going to end after that.
They're going to get 8 wins. They're going to look. They're
not.
I hate
it.
I don't think they're not going to beat Tennessee. They're not going to beat Clemson. Okay?
They're not going to beat Florida.
I think they can beat Florida. I think. Look,
possible. I think it's unlikely.
It might be unlikely, but they can beat Florida. They can get to 7 or 8 wins. Like I think they win today. So we'll see. Look, Shane Beamer. I got to give South Carolina fans this. They are electric. Okay. And my only thing of why I kind of hope he just marginally succeeds is they deserve a winner, right? Like they pack that stadium out every single week.
Yeah. They
are raucous. They deserve to win some football games. Will they? No, but they deserve to. So I rest my case. I missed this. I got to give my buddy Penn Jones some love in here. A super chat of $9.99 for Jules College Fund. Hopefully I'm not spending it. Hopefully, she doesn't get married for another 55, 60 years. So we'll say, Penn, thank you so much, buddy.
So she'd be 55 when she gets married.
Yeah, I'll be dead. I'll be maybe I'll be dead. I'm just messing around. All right, I do want to get to a couple games though before we get to our first guest. Florida, Georgia. Well, I mean, look, man, Florida's going to get beat down. I mean, I don't really know what to say about this game other than Florida doesn't have. I don't even think they have a puncher's chance, really.
Mm-hmm. And it's tough because we were so excited watching Florida early on this season. We were like,
I know, and I was so wrong.
And it's fine to be wrong that early on because they had all the makings of a team to be excited about. I think a lot of people thought Florida was going to be what Tennessee is right now. And Tennessee was a little slow to get going. I was not sold after the way that they played against Pitt, but they've since proven us wrong. I think one thing that can happen here is, maybe Anthony Richardson catches lightning in a bottle, kind of like the Tennessee game, has a bunch of really big plays, keeps it close, and then it kind of peels away for Georgia later on in the game. It's just so hard to move the ball against that Georgia defense. If they're coming off a bye, if they're hot and they're pissed off, you're not moving the ball. Anthony Richardson's going to be running for his life in this game if they come hot. If they come out playing the way that they did against Missouri, might be a bit of a different story, and Anthony Richardson's going to have a really nice game.
The only thing for me, I do feel like at some point he's gonna bust out a massive game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's this week though. I look, Georgia's playing for a lot. Here's the only thing though: you got Tennessee next week. Look, the East is on the line next week. Do they look forward to Tennessee and not focus on Florida? That would be my only thing. But Kirby, look, man. Kirby's a good coach.
Yeah.
He's such a good coach. Look, and as much as I ragged on him about his bowl cut and how goofy he looked and how stupid he could be, he's really turned into a really, really good coach. And I mean, obviously we know. Look, man, they have not Joe, what's crazy, and we need to do this maybe at the end of the season, maybe to recap this season. What's so funny to me is we look at these coaches, right? We look at coaches like Dabo or Jimbo, or not Jimbo, Dabo or Kirby or Brian Kelly or Saban or Lincoln, and we're like, oh, this team's ass. Oh, and I hear these things like Dabo's overrated. Bro, he's legitimately closing in on 40 wins in 3 seasons. Okay? Shut up about coaches being overrated. They're gonna lose. The worst season he's had last 10 years, he went 10-3. Same a lot with Kirby.
Yeah.
Kirby is the superior coach over Billy Napier. I think that and I think they're gonna wipe the floor with Florida today. I think they're a little pissed off. I want to get to this with you too.
Mm-hmm.
A team that I am worried about today. I think that they win. This Kentucky-Tennessee game is a matchup of the day for me. Because here's what I love about college football more than anything. Potential first-round pick that can work his way into the first round in Hendon Hooker. And I talked to a scout yesterday, okay, like legitimately yesterday. Me and him were eating lunch together because we were in the same vicinity, and I went to go get lunch, and he was there, and we just started chit-chatting, knowing each other for 10 years. I asked him, I'm like, brother, what am I missing with Will Levis? And he just like, hey, man, he's a really good quarterback. What's your thoughts on this game?
I think conceptually with this game, you can end up having like a close one. Like you have Kentucky versus Tennessee. You got the Will Levis Hendon Hooker matchup, which is fun. And I think a lot of people are so willing to buy into it. I did this breakdown on my draft show. Will Levis is a prospect. And I think everyone just assumes like, oh, Hendon Hooker shouldn't be valued as much as a prospect because he's older. But people don't realize Will Levis is also 24 years old. I think that we've got a more actualized player, a player that has put their traits onto the table, the deep accuracy, everything you love in a quarterback prospect have come together for Hendon Hooker. Will Levis hasn't put it together. And part of me was thinking when I previewed this game on my show, Blake, was that, maybe, Will Levis pops off. Maybe Will Levis has a really good game and, he can keep them in this game. And I didn't know this actually, Blake. Tennessee, do you know where they rank in pass defense?
I think they're like in the 120s.
They're 130th. The only team behind them is Ohio. And Ohio gave up 500 yards to Fordham. So their secondary has been bad this year. Like I know that one of those games is Alabama, but their secondary has not been good. So like if Will Levis gets things popping and they hit a bunch of big plays through the air, they should throw the ball 30 to 40 times if they want to win this game. They can't try to run the ball. It's not working. They've got one of the worst offensive lines when it comes to allowing tackles for losses.
They do have that now.
Yeah, it's terrible. That's their only hope. If they don't do that and Stoops is stubborn and kind of sticks to his approach, then I think it's going to be a blowout. Like if we're just being realistic.
I love great quarterback competition. Like I really love it. There's not really anything I disagree with you on other than here would be my counter argument. I know that Tennessee's secondary has been absolutely cheeks. Yes. Okay. But you can beat teams while going slow like Tennessee. Okay. You can still have 300 yards passing. I think at some point, Joe, a team that's going to have to beat Tennessee, they're going to have to slow the game down. Kentucky, to me, is that team that slows the game down enough that they can keep Tennessee's offense off the field. I don't think that this game is going to be a massive blowout if they're able to control the clock, okay? I think Will Levis can make the throws to win them the game. You got that at some point. This is why Alabama lost, in my opinion. Nick got uncharacteristic, and Nick does this. See, the funny thing about Nick and Alabama is he said that players were coming up to him after the Tennessee loss saying, yeah, coach, we were anxious. We weren't ready to go. No, Nick, that was you. Okay, yeah. Because Nick does that in all of these big games. Sometimes, as crazy as this sounds, the stage can be big for people no matter who they are. Okay, and you're going to strike out. My thing is this. I think Kentucky, if they slow this game down, can win it. Now, it's on the road. Tennessee is hitting on all cylinders. They get Cedric Tillman back, the first-round wide receiver. If they don't slow this game down, Joe, if they don't slow it down, they're going to get blown out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I agree with a lot of your points that you're making there. I just don't think Kentucky's the team that can slow the game down against Tennessee. I think it's going to be Georgia
next week. Right.
Yes. The team that's actually going to do it, and I'm going to be picking Georgia next week, is Georgia. They've got the offensive line. They've got the infrastructure. They've got the tight ends. They've got the roster that is meant to beat Tennessee. It is like it was cooked up in a lab to come out and beat Tennessee. Kentucky, conceptually, like I think we want to think that. And like, I totally would love for a competitive game here. But if Will's getting pressured and they can't run the ball and they're forced into a lot of third and longs because they're trying to control the clock, it might not turn out that great for them. I just think that like Rodriguez has been a little bit better lately. That offensive line is so scary to watch. And maybe the approach just needs to be like, we need to try and air it out a little bit. I know that seems counterproductive and it doesn't really work, and that you're not going to outduel Tennessee. You're just not. But with how bad their secondary is, you might need to be a little more aggressive than usual, because that's where the chink in the armor is. That's where the hole on that roster is that secondary.
Let me throw out a scenario to you. You're going to hate this as a Midwest guy.
Okay.
A New Jersey
guy. Yes.
Let me ask you this. If Tennessee loses to Georgia, hypothetically, and Alabama beats LSU next week, and Alabama wins the SEC championship game.
Over Georgia, hypothetically. Okay.
Tennessee is better than anybody in the pack, better than anybody in the Big 12. They're better than Clemson.
Yes.
People hate when I say this. If that plays out, 3 SEC teams deserve to be in the playoff. They do. Tennessee is better than Clemson. Ohio State is the only team in the country, in my opinion, that can go up with any 3 of these teams and beat them. It's the country's only hope. TCU cannot be. Name another team that can beat one of those 3.
Michigan or Ohio State are the 2 that come to mind. And like,
and you know what's sad, Joe? I don't think about them as much. I don't know why.
They're sneaky, and I honestly, first of all, I totally agree with you. And I've said it on my show a million times, and I always love to kind of towards the end of my stream on Sunday to do the hypothetical. Okay, if this or this happens, what's the playoff field going to look like? And the one thing that I've kind of turned into like a reoccurring bit is that if it comes down to that, give me the 3 SEC teams, give me Tennessee if they don't play in the SEC championship game. Do not put an undefeated Clemson team in. Do not put them in. They don't have the roster to compete. It looks nice on paper, and they're going to have one of the prettiest resumes out of all the teams that are vying for it. They beat Syracuse. They beat a ranked NC State team. All of it looks fantastic, but they're not that freaking good. And we saw the exposure of what they actually are against Syracuse. If DJU plays like crap, they're going to get smoked by any of these SEC teams. So give me Ohio State or Michigan. I think it comes down to who wins that rivalry game when they play each other. Not the Big Ten championship game, but who wins that rivalry game between Michigan and Ohio State. I think either team will know who's the better of the 2, and they're going to prove that they deserve to be in the conversation. But outside of that, maybe Oregon if they finish out, or maybe TCU. I'm not totally bought in on TCU, but Oregon's the only other team that I can maybe make the argument for.
I'm not giving Oregon a mulligan. I'm not doing it.
You're not?
No.
Oh,
there's no way. For me, when you look, let me say this: am I giving them would I give them a full mulligan? No. They're going to need a lot of help. Tennessee's going to have to find a way to lose twice. I mean, like, there are just a lot of teams. They're going to need a lot of help, because you can't go and play Georgia and lose by 40. You just can't do it and go into the playoff. Now, you know who loves this more than anybody?
Who?
The college football playoff expansion people.
Yeah.
Okay, because we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would, but not to this extent. Let me throw out another scenario to you. What if LSU does win? What if LSU beats Bama next week?
Oh, then they're out of the conversation, in my opinion.
You mean Alabama?
Alabama, yeah, because
well, let me ask you this: does LSU enter?
Will they be a 2-loss? There's too many. There's going to be too many 1-loss undefeated teams. Like,
but if they win out and they win the SEC, you're going to have to put them in.
What's LSU's remaining schedule separate from
Bama, Arkansas, UAB, A&M? Let me tell you something. If they find a way If LSU finds a way to beat Bama, they're going to run the table. They're going to run the table. Brian Kelly's too good to lose to a good team twice, and it's hard to lose to a good team twice.
Yeah.
They're going to run the table because let me tell you what else. They're going to have to use it on the look. I don't think that they are going to do that. Let me just say that what I'm thinking. I don't think that they're doing that. But Joe, so help me Christ. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. To all the fathers and all the cardinals and the Pope himself, if Brian Kelly wins 10 games this year, I'm targeting Iris Breakdown. You don't have to say anything. Don't say anything. Ryan Roberts, Driscoll, if he finds a way to win 10 games.
Don't bring Ryan in this. Don't bring Ryan. I got no comment.
I've been waiting all week.
Oh.
I was sitting there waiting on the birth of my daughter, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going for the Notre Dame faithful if this man wins 10 games. Joe, if he wins, all right, in all seriousness, and and all joking aside, if that man does find that way, brother, people gonna have to stop. They're gonna have to stop.
This is the face of a very defeated Notre Dame fan. If you can't tell, my face is very weathered. I'm only 24 years old, but I've got massive bags under my eyes. That is, this is obviously it has not gone the way that we have hoped. I kind of agree with you that the Notre Dame fans have been insufferable. And they've been
insufferable. It's been so bad. I post one thing about Brian Kelly all week. It was yesterday about him beating Ole Miss and going into recruiting. I got Notre Dame fans in my mentions talking about, he's going golfing. No, we know for a fact he's not golfing. We know for a fact he took that black Tesla and he's out recruiting. It gets to a point where, man, it becomes too much. And look, I get it. You're with a man that has a lot of success. But I'm just telling you, if they win 10 games, Joseph H. DeLeone, I am going to lose my stuff. I'm going to rip my shirt off live in the Bleav studios and swing around like a helicopter. I promise you, I'm going to lose my absolute cool.
And it's justified based on the way that we acted as Notre Dame fans. And look, I was one of them. But I am one of the few that's willing to sit here and admit that I was wrong. And I also think I'm one of the few, and this is what pisses me off the most. A lot of people that I freaking talk to, or not a lot of people that I talk to, are unwilling to admit that Marcus Freeman was the wrong hire.
He was the wrong hire. You should have backed up the Brinks truck to Luke Fickell.
That's what I've been saying. And there are so many people that I've talked to, and somebody I work with, and I'm not going to name him because I love and respect him. Are unwilling to admit that we got screwed in the situation. We got the shorthand of everything, and we are the clowns, with it all over our face, like with the pie on our face. We look like idiots, and this is going to take years to recover from. Brian Kelly was the right guy. I'm going to sit here and admit it. Like, Notre Dame fans need to stop being stubborn. Maybe it's a Midwestern thing. I don't know, but they need to stop being stubborn. Brian Kelly was the guy.
Let me just say this, and I have not given Notre Dame a lot of credit, okay? Because, once you get in a rivalry, you can't speak good about your opponent. Let me say this, though. Notre Dame is too established and too great of a program for you to have hired Marcus Freeman, okay?
I agree.
You cannot. There are too many good coaches on planet Earth that you can go after that have head coaching experience. Look, you mean to tell me that Luke Fickell wouldn't have came there for $7 million a year? And before Notre Dame fans tell me that Brian Kelly wasn't making $6.5–7 million a year at Notre Dame, I laugh at that because I know the exact amount that LSU had to pay Notre Dame for a buyout. Okay? Mm-hmm. So don't tell me he wasn't making $7 million a year because public records requests say that he was. Okay? Bottom line for me is that Notre Dame is too good and too elite of a program and we got Jenna Drinks. I'm sorry. We got Jenna Drinks coming up next. Too elite of a program for you to allow Marcus Freeman to be the head coach. Look, what's his buyout, by the way? What's Freeman's buyout? Do you know?
It's probably not. I don't know off the top of my head because they're a private institution,
right.
so they're not going to publicly have that information out there. Maybe it's somewhere out there. I think that Marcus has the ability to be a good head coach. It was just way too soon, and he needed to test his waters at a smaller program.
Cincinnati. Get Fickle. Let him go to Cincinnati. Let him test it out.
Or I could see him, having a decent time at like a South Carolina or a Missouri, and then working his way up.
But Beamer, dude.
I'm just saying, no. I'm just saying that type of a program. I'm just saying like a lower tier SEC, Big Ten, Power 5 program. But the buyout needs to happen, and it's not going to happen for a couple of years. They are, and I said this on my live stream last week, and I kind of compared them a little bit to like early Lane Kiffin, where they're just so charming that we're kind of willing to allow him to get by and be like, oh, let's just give him a little bit more time. He's just so charming and fun. And I know that they're different types of charming. Lane's a little more goofy and funny, and Marcus is just like this really well dressed, and like everyone's joking about how good he looks on the sideline. But like that's all everyone was talking about during the offseason. Like, oh, he's the best dressed coach in college football. He looks so great. That doesn't win you freaking football games. And he clearly doesn't know how to motivate his guys. They look soft in person when I saw him against UNLV. They look soft every day on TV. They don't look like a Power 5 program, which they're supposed to be.
All right, last thing. We're going to Jenna Drinks. Yeah. Me and you did not talk. Confirm this. Me and you did not talk we didn't talk about our content. I said the same thing you did about Marcus. I said Marcus Freeman is the defensive version of Lane Kiffin. I literally said that Monday.
Did you really?
Yeah, I said that Monday. I came out on this show, or my AYS show, and said that Marcus Freeman is the defensive version of Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, it's a perfect comparison.
It's a perfect comparison. That's Italians.
We're just on another level, man. We're
on another level. You know who loves Italians? I don't know this. I shouldn't say this. My wife. But you know who can make drinks like Italians?
It's Jenna.
All right, so let's do this. Let's get to our first break. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. They're good friends over at GM Varno & Sons. We return. Let's get toasty next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code Bleav50, that's Bleav50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Varno & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down on the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Varno & Sons. Go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992. 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. She's back.
What's up, guys?
Well, I got a confession to make, and I told you this off air, Jenna.
Yes, you did.
I did not have the time to go and get the ingredients, and this looks so damn good what you're making today.
Yes.
Thank you. Also, it does not matter because you literally have a new human being to take care of, so this is not a priority to you right now. Like, making a drink is not a priority.
Oh, or it might be the highest of priorities.
No, the highest of priority is that little girl.
Look, I got to admit, she's fantastic. She doesn't cry unless she kind of whimpers, if that makes sense. Like she's, but she's perfect. Now, our son Ben,
he's causing problems.
No, not really. He just loves to like get up in your face, like, "Hey, look, it's Baby Jewel." It's baby Jewel, baby Jewel, baby Jewel. I'm like, buddy, you gotta be careful. He goes, look at her fingers, are so long, daddy. And I'm like, Ben, don't touch her. She's trying to sleep. And then he's so good. He's really protective, which I love. So, all right, Jenna,
Wait, really quick, Blake.
okay.
I gotta ask you a question. Has anyone
Yes.
given you advice on how to be a girl dad?
No, I'm petrified. Literally. Okay.
Wait, did you know it was going to be a girl?
No, we did not know. We did not find out.
Wow.
So during the delivery, so we did this with Ben. So the anesthesiologists, they love this kind of stuff. They love when you don't find out because they get these like running bets going on. So apparently doctors are huge gamblers. I guess they should be because they make a lot of money. Okay, so they're betting on what the sex of the child's going to be. So look, I am not gonna lie. It was, she was supposed to be born next week. I was kind of like, I hyperventilate. I did it with Ben. I did it with her. I'm just like, so the guy comes in and he's like, just relax, you'll be all right. So I'm sitting there and they're like, all right, you ready? And I'm like, yeah. When she came out and it was a girl, I lost it. I cried and boo-hooed because, bro, when Ben, I'm like, all right, he's going to be fine. I can like push him down. He'll be fine. But with a girl, you can't do that. And man, these like little long eyelashes, dude, I can't handle it. My heart can't handle it. I can't do it, Joe.
You can. First off, yes, you can, because you wouldn't have a girl if you couldn't do it. I'm one of 4 and I have 3 girls, so God bless my father. And God bless him. God bless him. I will say this though, my dad was the one who gave me the words of encouragement to do what I'm doing. So
are you the oldest of the group?
I'm the oldest of the group. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So when I started doing all of this, like broadcasting and sports stuff, he's like, you should do it. And I was like, really? And he goes, sports better than most of my friends. Go do it. So I was like, okay, like, all right, Dad. But I say that to you, Blake, because you very much have a big influence in her confidence in what she can and cannot do one day.
Thank you for giving me confidence. You want to hear something? You want to hear something? Really? That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this funny story. So there's a guy that is on the LSU beat. His name's Preston Guy. So if he's listening, tell your son to keep his dirty paws away from my daughter. So he had a boy last night. Okay.
Okay.
So when we had Jewel, he was like, saying congratulations, all this stuff. And I was like, I have traded in all of my rich mahogany leather-bound books for firearms. Tell him to keep his dirty paws away from my daughter. Do you understand? Like, I own multiple firearms. Then I sent him. Do y'all remember the scene in Bad Boys 2 when Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are like, who the hell are you? He opens the door. He pats him down. I sent him that. I'm like, tell him it's on. And like they're 2 days old. They're 7 hours old. I'm just, but I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. The Lord is coming back to haunt me. All right, Jenna.
Yes.
I got to ask you a sports question. All right, let's do the drink, and then I'll ask you a sports question. Let's do that. You ready for that?
All right. Yeah, I'm ready. All right.
Jenna, I got to quick. I got to admit to you, I'm not making the drink along with you this week. I have to.
What?
I have to go get something worked on my car. So I was like, okay, am I going to show up to a mechanic like 2 drinks deep? Like, I can't do that in the morning. So I should have told you ahead of time. I'm sorry, Jenna, but I'm still excited to see it. I'm going to make it happen.
I forgive you.
I honestly feel like it looks like I'm drinking ale from Game of Thrones, like the black drink,
It is. I'm not kidding you. It's easily one of my favorite drinks I've made because of how fun it is. Like, it's just a really fun drink. And I'll say this too, for anyone who's listening, the kids can technically drink this, just get rid of the vodka. Like, this could be a really fun kid drink or fun for someone who's, doesn't want to drink, someone who's pregnant, but still wants to have fun.
I could go to Taylor Swift and shake my tail feathers, what you're saying.
Do not get me started on Taylor Swift. But
I know I've been seeing your content. All right, let's go.
Okay. Okay. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take half of a lemon, okay? And you're going to slice it in half. And then the other side, you're going to just slice little lemon wheels. Okay. So this part of the lemon wheels, guys, is technically not required. It's for garnish, but I'm a big believer that you drink with your eyes first. So you definitely want to have that for the look of it. Now, next step, you can technically do either 1 ounce of store-bought lemon juice, or you can take half of a lemon and squeeze it on in. If you can do fresh, because I just think it's that much better. Okay. But again, it's totally a personal preference, and that is gross looking, but God bless. Okay, there's that. Next, simple syrup. Everyone should have this in their house. If you don't, go buy it because it's so simple and it adds a lot to your cocktails. Okay, you're gonna do 1 ounce of simple syrup on in. Pour it in. Next, okay, this is where it gets fun. Charcoal pills. Now, I learned something about charcoal pills, guys. 1, they are not in the vitamin aisle at your local store. They are in the digestive aisle because it helps with your digestion. 2,
so I'm gonna be gluten while I drink this. Is that what
I mean, I think it's just gonna like help the system flow. So if you're a little
it's not like a
backed up,
laxative.
guys, it's not like a laxative. It's gonna help it flow. But the other thing I did learn about a show that I was on yesterday is charcoal pills help if you ever get poisoned. If you're like someone who's like a hunter, or if you're like out in the woods.
I keep telling you, this is Game of Thrones. This is Game of Thrones.
I learned something new. I again, this was not the reason why I made the drink. You're gonna open this up. Okay, this part's a little hard, and then as you do this, like you'll get a little bit of black on your hands, but it's fine. This is what helps make the drink black. And the other thing with this too, guys, is this doesn't technically have like taste, so it's not adding any flavor to it. It's just adding the color. You can do black food dye, but I just wouldn't, because there's a lot of artificial preservatives in that, and like we don't want that. Okay. Next, take your vodka. You're going to do 1.5 ounces. Okay. If you're eyeballing this, guys, it's like 2 fingers. Blake, watch your damn mouth. Okay.
I muted myself because
I know you did.
I'm a girl dad now, so
you're changing your tune.
I'm changing my tone. I didn't even think about that. How crazy is that? I didn't even think about that anymore.
It's gonna happen. Okay, then you're gonna take your ice. All right, get her in. I think that just hit my head. Take some water. All right, pour her in. God, it looks so good, guys. I'm really sad you're not making this with me, but I'll be fine. Before we add our lemons, you're going to stir it around with a long spoon. Okay. Reason why we do this is a little bit of the charcoal is like powdery. So it's going to sit a little bit. This just helps stir it around, make it all nice and even. Add your lemon wheels for garnish on the outside of the glass. And guys, look at how pretty that looks. Come on.
That looks fantastic.
Right? It's so good.
It's the perfect Halloween drink.
It's the perfect Halloween drink. I
didn't even notice this. Jenna is in Halloween attire.
Yes.
Joseph?
I left my witch hat in my car because I didn't want to scare you guys off. So, you know.
Oh, come on. That would have been great for the.
I know, but that's for when I go flying, and we're not flying right now. So.
Is that what you're going as for Halloween? Is that what the
Yeah, I pretty much am a witch every year. So I had another costume. And I wanted to be a ring master because I bought the costume years ago. Have the top hat, and I wanted to make my dog wear a giant lion's mane, but I also don't give a shit about going to a party, so I'm like, I don't really care.
Yeah, we're going trick or treat. We're going
trick or treating. What
the little one's right outside.
We can't say it too loud. Got you. One more thing about this drink, guys. You can technically just make this with store-bought lemonade, vodka, and then the black charcoal pills. I just prefer to make it by hand because I think store-bought lemonade is like way too sweet and like sour on my mouth, which is why I like to make it at home. So either way is fine. The only thing that matters is that there's vodka in it, and it makes your drink black.
I like it. It looks delicious.
It's so delicious.
So listen, Jenna, I gotta throw this out here to you.
Fire away.
The SEC West is up for grabs next week. Okay. LSU, Bama, Saturday night in Death Valley. We're going to have to come up with something epic because I have a feeling I'm going to be drinking a lot next week.
Can we just do a glass of Everclear, like a tall glass of Everclear with no
I don't
ice?
want to die. You know, I did drink. So I took this shot when I went to a bachelor party. It said fuel was the like the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, like my insides burn. It was like 120 proof. I'm like, I feel like you could run your car off of it's probably no wonder why my brain's all fuzzy. I wasn't like this before I had that little thing called fuel. It's like so wild. But Jenna, we're going to have to come up with something epic next week. Off the top of your dome, what we got?
Off the top of my dome, I feel like we could do one of two things, and you tell me kind of what you're feeling. I feel like LSU might be celebrating, which means that I really feel. Yeah, I don't care. I'll make a very bold, risky bet. I got no money in this. I got no skin in the game. But if that's the case, I say we have some bubbles to celebrate. That could be one option. Okay. Or two, my way of celebrating is with just like a nice shot of whiskey, which I know is what you like.
Yes.
Hell yes. I think that's the option.
I love whiskey.
Yeah. I did have this that I wanted to make for next week. I've already Jack Daniel's apple.
Yes, ma'am. You're speaking my language.
I know.
I have one thing to throw into the ring here. And I know it's very popular amongst the kids these days. I have not tried it, and it was brought up to me this past week. Apparently, a lot of kids are drinking something called blackout rage juice. Is there like a mature spin on that we can? I don't know what's in it.
Blackout rage.
It's like college kids at tailgates are drinking. It's like, is there a way we could do like a little bit more mature? I mean, it's the biggest weekend we got, Blake. We gotta get everybody prepared, man.
There's three things in this world I'll never do. I'll never betray this country. I'll never give up on AYS, and I'll never drink something called blacked out rage juice.
I wonder, what's the ingredients of that?
So the only thing I'm finding is blackout punch, which
it sounds like something that you would get either at your local college town or what Mike Tyson does to you when you step in the ring.
They're filling like gallon jugs up with this stuff, and then you're just drinking it.
So it's vodka, 7-Up, tonic water, lemonade, blue curacao, and pineapple juice, which
doesn't sound that bad.
It doesn't sound that bad, but it's the tonic water for me that's going to add all those bubbles in it. That's probably going to give you a little bit of an upset stomach, depending on how many you throw back.
Upset stomach, diarrhea. Y'all remember that commercial, the Pepto commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah, all you got to do is take a charcoal pill and you're all good to go, guys.
All right, that's Jenna Dettleton. Jenna Drinks joining us. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
man.
Jenna.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the drink.
All right. That's our good friend Jenna Dettleton. She's always fantastic. Okay. What do we say in Missouri? Like, is there a slogan? Is there a slogan that you say in Missouri, like the Ozarks? By the way, have you ever watched Ozarks?
No, I've never watched that once.
What?
I'm not very good at being caught up with shows.
Joseph, if you didn't have that Phillies hat on right now, I would come to the screen. And by the way, we'll get to that last. Okay. What a game last night!
It was fantastic.
Absolutely. And LSU fans are big Astros fans, so they hate me when I talk that trash. Anyway, all right, let's do this. Let's get to our final break. We'll go to Joe Yancey, Missouri, South Carolina. It's Cocktober. Next. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. Okay, we are here with Joe Yancey, who covers Missouri. Joe, what's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me back. How we doing?
Doing great. Okay, so Joe DeLeone, our co-host, is not a fan of Shane Beamer and thinks that Missouri is going to take down the Cox this Saturday, today. Let's talk about this game. October ends. Let's get to the game, though. What's going on here? What do you think is going to transpire here today?
I actually am going to try to not be a homer, but I think Mizzou's going to win this football game.
Okay.
And I know that sounds crazy, but the pressure's gone. So the only pressure that exists is going to be purely for Drink coaching this football team. Because if they go to 1-4 as opposed to 2-3, you got to remember they, in essence, lost 3 games against powerhouse, storied SEC franchises in Auburn, Georgia, and Florida on essentially 5 plays. So, turnovers, missed field goals at that Auburn game. Georgia, I'm not going to talk about the penalties, whatever. The Florida game, the pick 6, and then another really bad interception. The team, if you look at the individual pieces, they had a top 10 defense up until the bye week. They're now in the top 20. I think they're 23 it is in the nation. They have Luther Burden. Dominic Lovett was leading the SEC in receiving yards prior to the bye week. Luther Burden is touted as the best wide receiver in the SEC as a freshman and top
Agreed.
3 in the country. Yeah. Cody Schrader, Nathaniel Pete out of the backfield, Elijah Young at the third on the depth chart in the running back. The only piece is, I should say, that are questions are who's the quarterback? Is it Brady Cook? And then is Drink a great recruiter and a crappy coach? Or is he a good coach and he just hasn't tapped in and he can't close games yet? So the only pressure is on the coach. So I do think that this team is healthier since they had the week off. That win against Vanderbilt on homecoming was not impressive. However, I just don't think there's a lot of pressure. It's tough to win on the road. Mizzou's been looking for a signature win for years to not be the doormat of this conference, and I think this is it. Seriously, I believe that.
So part of the reason why I lean, don't mean to, sorry to cut you off, Bleav.
No, go ahead.
Part of the reason why I'm leaning Missouri in this game, and I like a lot of the stuff that you brought up there, Joe, is that South Carolina has made like a lot of mistakes and has had a lot of turnover issues, and not a lot of people are talking about. But Missouri's defense has been really freaking good this year. Like
Blake Baker was the biggest miss to LSU not retaining. I mean, Blake Baker is going off. They're decent.
Yes.
But so to that point, like what has made this defense so good? Because no one's talking about it because the offense isn't really caught up, and Missouri's records is what it is. But like, what in your opinion has been why this defense has been one of the best scoring defenses in the country?
Well, you named one of the guys, but I mean also the stabilization of the secondary. So in the beginning game, the first game I was there, I go to as many of them as I can. I don't live too far, but when they played Louisiana Tech, you're like, still a D1 team. But however, the secondary gave up 370 passing yards to the starter and the backup combined. The D line, Missouri has a history of having great D linemen. That's not a new thing. Tyron Hopper transferred from Florida. That was a huge get. He was 1 or 2 in tackles before the bye week. I don't know where it sits now. The D-line has been good and has been good for a while. They don't get to the quarterback as much as they should, but they've now started to cover. And they can put a little bit more pressure, a few more guys in the box when need be, give them a few different looks, and they can cover. The first 3 games of this year, they couldn't cover. The K-State game, throw it in the trash. Horrible game in every way, shape, and form. But when they started getting into SEC play, not only can they cover, they also tackle. They don't miss a lot of tackles. So bigger problem, though, is the time of possession. They're exhausted. They're always on the field because Brady Cook can't move this offense. But the defense has been great, and I expect them to be great in this game too.
What's the thoughts on Drinkwitz? I mean, is he up against it? I mean, look, I mean, because on Joe, on the outside looking in, I do think there are a couple games. Like, I feel like South Carolina, Missouri are the tale of 2 teams. Like Missouri, I agree with DeLeone here. South Carolina has gotten lucky in some of these games where Missouri has not gotten as lucky. And so the record doesn't really reflect. I think they're more closer than people give them credit for. But, man, I do like Drinkwitz. I do think that they're getting better. But what's the vibe? Are people starting to get unsettled with him?
I mean, I don't know how hot the hot seat is, but if you look at local media in the Columbia, Missouri area, or my area, St. Louis or Kansas City, they sensationalize it because there's not a whole lot to talk about. So quite frankly, I don't think it's as bad as some think. I also know that he's very well liked and an exceptional recruiter. So some of the guys that he's been able to pull down, 4-star, 5-star guys. I mean, he's got some monsters coming in. That's going to buy him at least another season, in my opinion. It's a rare mix that a school like Mizzou, that is newer to the SEC than most, is going to get a Gary Pinkel-like coach. We know he's better than Odom. Okay, he's a better recruiter. They just got to figure out how to close games. I don't know what that looks like. And it might be as simple as, if they were to lose this game, you would now consider a lost season. You go to 1-4 in conference, and then you bring in Sam Horn, who's the guy that's number 2 in the depth chart. And the biggest heat on Drink is he going to stay with Brady Cook? Everything else, I think, is a non-issue. We know he can recruit. He's well-liked. He plays well with the media. He answers all the questions. He takes the accountability. They're just so close. I mean, again, 5 plays from 3 W's. This could be a totally different season. They could be a ranked ball club right now. And I think if they stick with Drink, and we don't know what's going to happen, but ultimately, I don't think it's as bad as some think. I think he's at least here through next year. He's just now getting his guys that, he's just starting to get the guys he's recruited under him, because a lot of this is some legacy stuff that's funneling out. But he can't lose through the end of the year. He better not lose to like New Mexico State, because they got Kentucky and they got Tennessee. And then we've got our rivalry game against Arkansas to end the year. And then if they've got this game today, they've got some very difficult conference matchups left. And unfortunately, the SEC is unforgiving. So his recruiting is slightly outweighing his coaching. If the two kind of align, he'll be here for a long time.
I think he did a good thing in bringing in Blake Baker. Okay. Yeah. He's solidifying the defense.
Yep.
It's just, for me, I think you got to give him another year, man, regardless of how the season transpires, because there's teams where you see flashes with, right? You see that, Auburn is unfortunate. Vandy, you win, but Vandy's better than some people give him credit for, man. People laugh at me when I say that, but Clark Lee's doing really well. The only thing for me is can he get a quarterback?
Yeah.
And if he can, maybe watch out. Maybe they can go in the portal. Let me ask you this on the South Carolina side, though. Is there something that South Carolina does that, hey, man, Missouri's not going to be able to take that away? Or is this more evenly matched up than some anticipate?
I think it's a lot more even than some anticipate. One thing, and not to harp on the Drink, but it does kind of
revert back.
Yeah. So one of the biggest pieces is he hasn't been able to, or for whatever reason, doesn't commit to the run. And we think he's trying to get Burden involved. Lovett took off. He's trying to get him involved. He doesn't know which running back to commit to, and you don't have to commit to one. It can be by committee. However, he was determined in the game against Vanderbilt, and we had 45-plus rushing attempts, which hasn't happened in a really long time. Mizzou can run the football against South Carolina. I don't think there's any doubt that they'll have success on dumps and screens and quick outs, bubble screens, which is what is effective when you have 2 extremely fast, sure-handed receivers to pick up yards here and there. But to get the chunks and open up that passing game deep, should they choose to let Brady finally throw a few deep balls, it's going to require the running game. So I think in every area, it's pretty competitive and pretty even matched. I do think Mizzou's defense is superior to Carolina's offense, and that is why I think they win. Again, I am a homer, but I'm trying to not be a homer. But otherwise, I think it's very evenly matched. I don't think there's a specific piece that stands out. Harrison Mevis, who is the kicker, who obviously missed the big kick against Auburn, but then came back against Georgia and looked like Justin Tucker. Our return game, they haven't made a turnover on special team in the ages. I do think Mizzou has a slight advantage on the special team area as well.
Yeah, you're talking about the one thing that stood out to me is how Missouri's defense matches up really well with South Carolina's offense. And just from what you've seen, I'm not sure how much you've really tracked South Carolina football. Is there any concern about Spencer Rattler? Is there any worry that he takes over this game, or is it just everyone else is realizing he's not as good as he might actually be?
I don't think he's a bad football player. Do I watch him heavily? No, but I'm definitely familiar with him. I think he's solid. I don't think he takes over the game. I think he's checked. And again, and this is not me just, whatever with Mizzou's defense. there are individual pieces on that team that have comprised a stellar unit, and they're all healthy. I mean, if you look at the way they played against Florida, which was a great game, considering the amount of time they were in the field and the opposing field position they were giving up off a couple of those big turnovers, they were missing 2 key players that are now back. So this team is ready to play them. The defensive side, I have zero concerns about. Spencer will be fine. I mean, I think it'll be a very pedestrian-like game. I'm not saying he's going to kill it. I'm not saying he's going to suck, but I don't think he's going to take over the game, and I don't think it's going to be much of a difference.
Last one for you, Mr. Yancey, because there's two Joes here. I don't want to say Joe and then both of you.
Good.
Yeah. Score prediction. What do you think it's going to be at the end?
So this is crazy. On our Bleav show yesterday, I know this sounds crazy. I said 42-24 Mizzou, and the guy I'm hosting.
Wow.
I'm just telling I know that's crazy, and I know I'm the only person in the universe that's going to tell you that, but I just feel like the defense is going to cause at least 2 turnovers. If Mizzou is +3 in the turnover battle and they run the football, I think they kill them. And we'll see what happens, but that is my score prediction.
If that happens, Bleav we owe you like a thing of scotch or something, like you predict that.
That's cool. If that happens, you just burn that hat. I was in game 1 in St. Louis and the Cardinals were winning.
Oh, you're talking about my hat.
Your hat. I was talking. I was walking out of this. I was leaving Busch Stadium like this is a W. And anyways, I am rooting for the Phillies though because I hate the Astros. But
yeah, I do too. We're the comeback kids. We're the comeback kids. We keep coming back every game.
That was the toughest game I've ever been to in my life, and I've been a Cardinals ticket.
I tell you what, man, JT Romuto is just
that dinger he hit. Oh my God.
Yeah, I saw a great tweet about them taking down the Rocky statue, getting one for JT and Bryce in place of it. But good luck to your team, man. I'm rooting for them for sure because the Astros, no offense, not a fan.
It's tricky because everyone should be rooting against the Astros because of the abomination. Yeah, the cheating, the abomination that they are as a franchise. But for anyone who's kind of paid attention to Twitter, apparently every time the Phillies win the World Series, the country goes into
a
recession.
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky. It's like, screw the Astros, but I'd also don't want to go into a recession. But
yeah. Also, the cheating thing is a lot more widespread than people think. There's a guy real quick, I won't keep you. Jeff Lunau or maybe still is the general manager of the Houston Astros. He's from John Moselek's camp. He was working for the St. Louis Cardinals for a long time. There's a guy, do the research, there's a guy in jail for the cheating of the scout, stealing the cyber hacking thing, who worked under Lunau's guidance. And, they say Lunau taught him those scandalous measures on how to hack other teams' databases and who they were scouting, get that inside knowledge. And Jeff has never been held accountable for that. He just went to Houston as a GM. St. Louis was penalized for his behavior. So that's another reason why I hate the Astros. I know it's a college football show, but if you get bored, look that up and you'll see he's a scumbag. Go Phillies.
The people in Louisiana hate me because I don't like the Astros, but I hate cheaters. So
yeah, there you
I'm
go.
not going to deal with it.
Makes sense.
Mr. Yancey, thank you so much, sir. We'll
get
you here again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. See you.
All right, that's Mr. Joe Yancey. All right, Joe. You want to round this show up? Great one. It was a great one. A lot of good content between me and you. How do we want to end it? What did we leave something out? What did we leave out?
I mean, we hit on all the really big key games here. I mean, it's the lightest week of the SEC schedule, and I think that for what we've got going on this week, still a lot of storylines to follow. The big thing though, Blake, is next weekend. Like it almost starts, the conversation starts tomorrow. Unless somebody gets upset tonight.
Like if Tennessee loses to Kentucky.
Yeah. Realistically, everyone's going to start talking about next week tomorrow. Next week is going to have all of the impact on the college football playoff, the SEC championship game, the SEC standings. All the big games are happening next weekend. And we'll be prepared.
I still think there's a lot of big storylines in this point. Okay. Because if Jimbo and them lose to Ole Miss, which there's an interesting stat, I brought this up last week. Teams that have back-to-back, so in the SEC, teams that have back-to-back Power 5 road games like 95% of the time, lose one of them. Ole Miss had back-to-back road games. They lost to LSU last week. If they beat A&M today and LSU loses next week to Alabama, well, then you have an Ole Miss Alabama showdown, right? Like they're still in this, right? Like they're still in this fight. They're still in this battle. Here's, there are still a lot of storylines. Like how bad if they blow out A&M, how bad does it start getting for Jimbo Fisher?
That's when the seat starts to get hot for him, and I think that legitimately would stir up the conversations. And I think it's actually likely that they get blown out. That they get blown out by the next match.
I agree.
They're probably pissed off and ready to. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying they're probably pissed off that about what happened last week against Ole Miss or against LSU, and they're going to be gunning for Texas A&M.
Well, here's another thing. If you're A&M, you got to make some changes on your program. And listen, I know the A&M fans are mad at Lane, but man, if Lane Kiffin went to Texas A&M with the money backing that they have, buddy, I'm just going to tell you this right now. You better start saying, "Hey, Lane, because look, he's never going to win a natty at Ole Miss. He's just not going to do it."
Really?
No, he's not. They
Is
don't
it a
have
funding
the
issue.
They don't have the in-state talent, right? Like in the SEC, okay, when teams win outside of Alabama, which they're the outlier, okay, but they still have more in-state talent than Mississippi does. They can't look LSU in-state talent, Florida in-state talent, Georgia in-state talent. The only team in the South that has won multiple national titles in the last 20 years that doesn't have elite in-state talent, Clemson. Okay, like you got to have a lot of in-state talent. I just can't see him doing it. He's gonna go to either A&M. Mark my words. He's going to go to Ole Miss is not his last venture.
Really? I feel like, though, that for how much work it's taking to rebuild Ole Miss and prop them up in the degree that they are, like it's going to take a lot of work to just start from scratch. Like he started from scratch so many times. So, and he's also been in a lot of circumstances where there's been fire under his ass. Tennessee and USC were really high pressure situations. And I think maybe there's a little less pressure at Ole Miss. There's still a lot of pressure because it's an SEC program. I don't know. I feel like you got to do whatever you can to keep him. And the recruiting thing is an issue. He has done well recruiting outside guys from outside states, like Jackson Dart's from Utah. Zach Evans is from Texas, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's done a good job of getting guys in the portal, and maybe that's what his calling card is going to be, is just dominating the portal. And I think that they had the best portal recruiting class out of anybody. Maybe that's what it's going to take.
They're definitely up there. If it's not them, USC, LSU, whoever it may be, they're definitely up there. I mean, Jackson Dart, Zach Evans, you're definitely right. All right, last one. Kentucky, Tennessee. You want to make a prediction on that game?
Yeah, as much as I would love for the storyline and for the things to get blown up, like I always root for upsets and for things to be exciting and for that to be a close game, maybe even an upset. I realistically, knowing how weak Kentucky is and kind of how fake they are defensively, they've got one of the worst, statistically one of the worst defensive lines in terms of creating pressure and stopping the run and getting guys in the backfield. Their offensive line is one of the worst in the country. We've talked about that every single week. I don't have a lot of faith in them. I just don't have faith that they can compete and stay on the field with Tennessee. If maybe they get a huge couple big passing plays that get them back into it really quickly, they've got the guys on offense and in that passing attack to do it. But I just think it's a really uphill battle. The real test for Tennessee is going to be against Georgia. It's not going to be against Kentucky.
Completely agree. I want to end this. I want to end it here with this one.
Yeah.
We don't talk about him a lot, but I think we're going to have to start to. Breaking on College Game Day today, Deion Sanders was asked about other schools reaching out to him about jobs during our jobs reaching out. He said, and this is a quote, "I'd be a fool and a liar to tell you I'm not going to entertain those things because I am, but I have made no plans to move or go anywhere. He just said, call me. A lot like Tom Brady posting on Instagram that him and his Giselle broke up. Pretty much just like, hey, the DMs are open.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders just said the DMs are open. Auburn needs a coach.
Texas A&M might need a coach.
Texas A&M, I can't see it in A&M. There's too much cult stuff going on there. But if there's a man crazy enough to go into Auburn that can really recruit on the same level, in my opinion, to win at Auburn, Deion could do it, man. Deion can do it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Auburn needs to back up the truck for him.
I agree. Or Hugh Freeze. Or Hugh.
Well, Hugh just got extended.
Yeah, but only $20 million. Listen, I know a LSU booster that thinks $20 million is play money. Okay? Like, I mean, I don't – he did get extended, but $5 million a year, Joe. I mean, the only thing with Hugh is Greg Sankey going to let him back in. That's the only thing.
Right. Which is it's silly now because he was doing pre-NIL before NIL was a thing. So it's like, how much are you going to really
he was
knock
calling
him for?
hookers left and right, and I'm not talking about Hendon.
Well, there's that too. That I mean, that's the more immoral thing that he was doing.
That's funny. That was clever and funny. You got to admit.
It was pretty good.
Okay. All right, Joe, let's get on out of here. Until next week, massive week next week. Looking forward to it. Until then, guys, we'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good morning. Let's go watch some football. Peace out, Girl Scouts.